If you're anything like me and you can't resist the allure of a shiny new piece of technology, then you've probably been watching all the recent Quest 3 coverage with one hand on your wallet, itching to upgrade and relegate your Quest 2 to a dusty old cupboard never to be seen again. If that sounds like you, then I totally get it. The Quest 3 is one hell of an upgrade that will elevate your standalone VR experience to levels we haven't seen before, whilst bringing mixed reality and full colour pass-through to the masses. Frankly, it's a powerhouse of a device that immediately makes the Quest 2 feel a little bit dated. However, not everyone feels the need to have the newest and best piece of tech, and when it comes to the Quest headsets, there are actually a ton of arguments in favour of simply keeping your Quest 2 and holding off the upgrade. The Quest 3 is an impressive beast, which brings plenty of new features to the table, but ultimately for some people it won't offer anything new enough to justify the purchase, and the Quest 2, at least for a while, will continue to give those users the experiences they know and love. So, should you run out to buy a Quest 3 as soon as physically possible? Is it worth upgrading to from your Quest 2? Will the Quest 2 even continue to be supported with exciting new games and apps for the foreseeable future? And if you're new to virtual reality, which one should be your first foray into the wonderful world of VR? As someone who's used both headsets, watched a ridiculous amount of content about the Quest 3, and who is fairly knowledgeable at this point about the VR industry and meta in general, these are my initial thoughts on the matter. Budgets are tighter than ever right now, and a fancy little VR helmet is definitely a luxury purchase for the majority of people. But we all deserve nice things regardless of our bank balance, so it's great to see the Quest 2 sticking around at its frankly fantastic price point of £299.99, a full £180 cheaper than the cheapest model of the Quest 3. For that price, you get an amazingly versatile standalone VR headset with hundreds upon hundreds of high quality VR games. It houses almost all of the best titles the medium has to offer, with games like Beat Saber, Resident Evil 4, Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Pistol Whip, Walkabout Minigolf, Moss, Rec Room, and so many more, all running beautifully and looking pretty damn great too on the Quest 2. It also doubles as a solid PC VR headset. It's been my daily driver for over 2 years, and although it doesn't offer the highest resolutions and best quality displays on the market, it has allowed me to experience games like Half-Life Alyx, Asgard's Wrath, and Kayak Mirage, which all looked stunning and ran like a dream. Now don't get me wrong, the Quest 3 justifies its price point comfortably. It's a far more powerful and feature-rich headset that is edging standalone experiences ever closer to PC VR quality, whilst also throwing in full colour pass-through and exciting new mixed reality experiences into the mix. £479.99 feels perfect for this new device if you're looking for the best standalone VR headset on the market. However, if you're just toying with the idea of trying VR for the first time, or perhaps you're not super concerned about your games looking as impressive as possible, then sticking with the lower priced Quest 2 won't mean you're missing out on the core VR experience. If you have never once placed a VR headset atop your beautiful head and you're contemplating diving in for the very first time, then my honest advice would always be to grab the Quest 2. There will be some newcomers out there who simply want the very best thing on offer, and that's fine. I know I fall into this camp of always going all in on anything I do or purchase. But for those who are curious and haven't experienced VR before, I'd say starting with the Quest 2 is the safest bet. Same goes for kids who might be pestering their parents for their very first VR headset. Chances are they just want to play Rec Room, Gorilla Tag and Roblox with their friends, and the Quest 2 will do all of those things and much more competently. As I've already mentioned, the Quest 2 has one hell of a back catalogue. All the biggest VR titles are here, excluding those that only exist on PC or PSVR 2, and they're optimised like crazy to run fantastically on this hardware, so the experience of playing them, although a little lower quality in terms of the visual, should be fundamentally the same as playing them on Quest 3. It's ultimately a lower risk investment that yields effectively the same core VR experience. Instead of dropping nearly £500 on a headset that you might not enjoy, you're spending around £300 or less if you look at the second-hand market, and you can still play all the same games and experiences that the Quest 3 will have at launch. Plus, at the time of recording this video, all the biggest future releases are still launching on the Quest 2 as well, meaning you won't miss out on games like Assassin's Creed Nexus, Ghostbusters, Stranger Things, or Asgard's Wrath 2. There are currently no known Quest 3 exclusive VR games, although I imagine that will change in around a year's time. One thing you will, however, miss out on with the Quest 2 is the shift towards a MR focus that many Quest developers will no doubt be experimenting with. These new mixed reality experiences that take full advantage of the much higher quality Quest 3 color pass-through either won't work on Quest 2 or they'll be an awful blurry black and white mess. At this point, it looks as though these MR experiences will be exclusive to Quest 3 and Quest Pro, so that's something to consider when making your decision. However, if you just want to play VR games and don't mind that they're not going to look as sharp and detailed as they do on the Quest 3, then you can save yourself almost £200 by opting for the older headset. My final point for newcomers is regarding motion sickness. It's still a huge barrier for entry for those who have never used VR before. I've personally known so many people who have bought a VR headset and then struggled to play any of the games due to how sensitive they are in this area. Neither one of the Quest headsets is any better at reducing motion sickness. It's something that needs perseverance and practice to overcome, and it's dealt with at a software level by developers who incorporate features into their games to combat it. However, spending £300 to discover you get sick playing VR is better than spending £500 to discover the same thing. If you already have a Quest 2, the decision becomes a little more complex and personal. On the one hand, you have people who are enjoying their Quest 2 experience. Those people have two options. They could stick with the Quest 2 knowing that they'll still have a large library of games at their disposal and plenty more big titles coming soon. The Quest 2 isn't showing any signs of slowing down just yet, so if you're enjoying the device, you can be safe in the knowledge that plenty more games are coming and they'll continue to improve in quality as developers get more comfortable with the tech. It's still giving you a great VR experience, and there's no need to change that by spending some cash. Or perhaps you're loving the Quest 2 but wish the games looked better. Perhaps forking out a few £1,000s for a VR capable PC to experience higher fidelity games just isn't an option, and really a £500 upgrade that will get you closer to that kind of quality whilst also offering MR, pancake displays and higher resolutions is a pretty appealing proposition. Having seen games like Red Matter 2 running natively on the Quest 3 with my own two eyes, I can say with certainty that games enhanced for or built for the Quest 3 hardware will be a noticeable leap up from the Quest 2. You'll immediately see the difference if you care about the visual fidelity and complexity of your gaming experiences. If you're just in it for the fun, it might not be as apparent to you, so the upgrade might not be worth it. But if you're already happy with your Quest 2 and just feel like you'd benefit from the games looking better, feeling more alive, and generally looking closer to the PC VR counterparts, then the upgrade is a fairly safe bet. And then we have those who aren't enjoying the Quest 2 at all. Again, this group have two options. If you picked up the Quest 2 to see what all the fuss was about and fundamentally didn't enjoy the experience of playing the available VR games, I don't think the Quest 3 is going to change that for you. Sure, the games will look better and mixed reality might impress you more than you might think it would, but the basic experience of using this device is almost identical to the Quest 2. Ultimately, the back catalogue of games are effectively the same, and the new titles enhanced for the Quest 3 will be available on that dusty old Quest 2 you haven't touched if you really feel the urge to try it again. The Quest 3 is impressive, but for those who weren't won over by the Quest 2 or VR in general, it isn't going to change that. Or, second option, if you were left unimpressed by the Quest 2 not because of its available games or the overall VR experience, but instead because of how underwhelming and low quality the games looked, this might be a turning point for you. Not every game is going to magically look better on the Quest 3. Each game will need a significant upgrade for that hardware, and that means developers taking the time to go back in and enhance their product. So it's best to not assume Quest 3 will make everything look better by default. But if your main gripe was that the games looked flat, lifeless, dull, low quality, and perhaps weren't as packed with NPCs or enemies on the Quest 2, then the Quest 3 should fix those issues for you in the games that choose to lean into the additional power of the new hardware. Take Walking Dead Saints and Sinners for example. The new Quest 3 footage looks miles better than Quest 2, and I'm confident this level of quality would win over those who weren't impressed by the previous headset's visual experience. If you're the kind of person who is interested in a pure specs comparison and just wants the very best standalone headset that money can buy, then the Quest 3 is a no-brainer. It should come as no surprise to you that Quest 3 dominates Quest 2 on a pure specifications comparison. Almost everything is bigger and better on Meta's new headset. We have a higher resolution on Quest 3, an increase of 30% over the Quest 2 to be precise. We have a wider FOV on Quest 3, a larger IPD range, more RAM, a new Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 chipset, a similar battery life, redesigned controllers, color pass-through, pancake displays, a smaller form factor with a better center of gravity. It's an absolute landslide in favour of the Quest 3, and you can see here how it justifies its higher price point. If you want and need the very best standalone VR headset on the market, then the answer is the Quest 3. It's really that simple. But if you just want a standalone VR headset to play a bit of Beat Saber and perhaps kill a few zombies every now and then the Quest 2 has you covered and will do those things excellently. Now, at this point, it's probably worth addressing the elephant in the room, and that's future support for the Quest 2. I have to be clear now, everything I'm saying in this next section is pure speculation. I have no idea what Meta's plans are for the Quest 2 platform, and I can only hazard a guess at how they'll handle things moving forward based on their past decisions with older Quest and Oculus hardware. Historically speaking, Meta have no issues when it comes to ceasing support for older hardware and software titles. For example, Quest 1 launched in May of 2019, and the Quest 2 followed just over a year later in October of 2020. As the Quest 2 really took off, we started to see Quest 2 only titles around the end of 2022. Population 1 stopped working on the original Quest hardware, Resident Evil 4 VR was a Quest 2 exclusive, along with other big hitters like After the Fall and Bone Lab. So 3 years after its release, the Quest 1 was effectively starting to shut down in terms of new games and experiences. This was further confirmed in March 2023 when support for social features on Quest 1 was ended, and it was announced that critical bug fixes and software patches would only be supplied until 2024. At this point in time, we are in the very end of life stages of the original Quest 1, just 4 years after its initial release. Now, do I think the Quest 2 will suffer the same fate? Eventually, yes, but I would hazard a guess that it won't happen quite as fast as it did with the Quest 1 due to the relative power of the hardware of the Quest 2 and its explosive success and adoption. I personally can't see the Quest 3 getting anywhere near the Quest 2 in terms of its success, regardless of how good it is as a standalone VR headset. The Quest 2 was lightning in a bottle, a pandemic-fueled hit that dropped at exactly the right price and won people over quickly during a time where everyone was confined to their houses and no one could get hold of the new Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5. Ultimately, the Quest 2 will still be the dominant VR headset in terms of install base for a very long time, whereas the Quest 2 very quickly surpassed the install base of the Quest 1, making that headset redundant fairly quickly. I can certainly see Meta winding down support for the Quest 2 at some point, and I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see Quest 3 exclusive games within a year or two of release. After all, Meta will need to drum up reasons to purchase their shiny new hardware, and the best way to do that is to showcase exclusive experiences that you can't play anywhere else. However, with a presumed smaller install base for the Quest 3, they'll need to take care of their Quest 2 audience for much longer than they did with the Quest 1 players. I wouldn't panic about Meta sunsetting the Quest 2 for a good few years now. Developers have managed to squeeze some incredible games out of the Quest 2 hardware, and I truly believe we'll see more that push it to its absolute limits. So fret not if you're considering sticking with it for now or even picking one up instead of the Quest 3. At the very least, there are plenty of amazing games available and a whole host of new ones on the way well into 2024, and I expect beyond. Whether you love it, hate it, or currently feel indifferent towards it, the biggest unique selling point of the Quest 3 over the Quest 2 is easily the mixed reality applications paired with the full colour pass-through. There are a handful of these kind of MR games available for the Quest 2, but playing them in black and white with that fuzzy, blurry pass-through is a downright uncomfortable experience and definitely not something I've spent any real time playing with. This is where the Quest 3 really excels. Its new full colour pass-through is sharp enough for you to use your phone whilst in the headset. You can read text and see objects in the world around you clearly. It definitely isn't at the point where the quality matches that of our eyes natively, and you can tell you're seeing a camera feed of the space you're in, but it's a massive improvement over the Quest 2 and even the Quest Pro pass-through. When this feature meets digital elements and games that bleed into your real world environment, it feels like absolute magic. The games I've played so far were admittedly a little bit simplistic, but they all showcase the potential of this technology. And games like Lego Bricktales and Demeo coming to MR really show how incredible it can be seeing games play out in the space you're inhabiting. Sitting on your sofa and playing Lego Bricktales on your coffee table with the ability to move fully around the environment in 3D, zooming into the smaller details by simply moving closer to them is a crazy concept, and one that I hope devs will fully embrace to bring some truly magic experiences to the Quest 3 platform. MR is something you have to see and experience to truly understand. I didn't really care about it until I had my hands on time with the Quest 3, and even then I could see some users being a little underwhelmed or skeptical of the potential of the games I've been hands-on with. But it is something to consider when making that choice between Quest 2 and 3. A lot of Meta's marketing materials for Quest 3 have leaned into the MR angle in a big way, so expect a big push for these kinds of games during the life cycle of this new headset. If you opt to buy a Quest 2 and devs start to focus more of their efforts on these mixed reality experiences rather than VR games, then chances are you will miss out on a wave of new experiences that are likely to get more and more impressive with time. In summary, I don't think everyone needs to run out and purchase a Quest 3 right away. It's definitely a huge upgrade over the Quest 2, and those looking for the best standalone VR experience on the market won't be disappointed with Meta's new headset. It's sleek, slim, and powerful enough to run some truly remarkable VR experiences, but the biggest unique selling point is actually the mixed reality element. Quest 2 will still be supported with landmark games such as Ghostbusters, Power Wash Sim, Assassin's Creed, and Bulletstorm for the foreseeable future, and considering it's the dominant VR platform right now with a huge install base, I can't see Meta abandoning it as quickly or in the same way that they did with the Quest 1, meaning this headset still has legs and it could keep running for a good few years at least. If you're strapped for cash, want a solid VR experience, or are just happy with what the Quest 2 is currently providing you, then stick with the current device. But if you need the very best visuals, want that full colour pass-through MR, or simply feel your wallet burning a hole in your pocket, then the Quest 3 is a very worthy upgrade that will take your VR experiences to a whole new level.